complicit by Peter Oborne. Peter Oborne spoke to around 100 people at a Collardale Trades Union Council public meeting in June 2026. Centred around events in Palestine, Oborne's speech touched on the then ongoing 2026 World Cup in North America, including that if any country in the world had recently engaged in such widespread military action and threats as the US, they would have been excluded from the tournament. During his 26-minute speech, Peter Oborne talked about the flattening of Gaza, his recent experiences in the West Bank, and how the system set up following World War II to prevent the return of events in the 1930s and 40s has been destroyed.
Such an honour to be here, and what wonderful speeches! So it's Katie, is
Katie,
yeah, Katie. I just can't beat what you said so eloquently about your connection with what's happening now in Palestine. But it was very moving. And Jenny, just to add a word to what you're saying about the World Cup. I mean, 500. Just imagine. Let's have a try a mental experiment. Just imagine that any other country apart from the United States was hosting it, that they'd launched an illegal invasion or attack, I should say, of a distant country 3.5 months earlier, which was unprovoked and didn't have the United Nations consent, and therefore was a war crime, the supreme war crime under international law as set out in the Nuremberg trials. Imagine they'd done that. Imagine that they'd attacked Venezuela and captured the president and stolen the oil just a few months earlier. Imagine that this imaginary country had threatened to invade Greenland, or that it was planning to invade Cuba. I mean, there's just simply no way that the World Cup would have gone ahead. And then what they've done with regard to the World Cup, I mean, the despicable treatment of the Iranian squad, just treating them, not allowing them into the United States. The Somali refugee, the Somali referee who, voted the best referee in Africa last year, and he's sent home. This is disgusting. Jesse Owens managed to get to Berlin in 1936. That Somali referee was not allowed into Trump's racist America. I do think that Infantino is the most. All I would say about him is some of us will remember Sir Stanley Ruz, who was his predecessor as head of FIFA in the 1960s, and fought for ages to keep white supremacist South Africa as part of the World Cup. He actually managed in 1963 to travel down to South Africa and had a fact-finding tour hosted by the South African government, and came back having concluded that there was no anti-black racism in South Africa, and therefore and therefore South Africa could remain as part of the world footballing community. This is I make a specific observation about this. The defense of Israel as it commits carnage in Gaza, as it invades neighboring countries, as it slaughters 20,000 children, and number growing in Gaza, as it tries to repeat as it repeats what it did in Gaza in Lebanon, has caused us to wage war, smash to bits the international system we set up after World War II, to stop a repeat of what happened in the 1930s and 1940s. This was what we stood for. We set up the International Court of Justice, We set up the United Nations. We set up, a bit later on, the International Criminal Court to go after war criminals. All of that is being that whole system, the Genocide Convention, that whole system, which was meant to bring order and peace to the world, is being systemically undermined in defense of the barbaric regime, which I think is the barbaric government in Israel. Netanyahu is now a fugitive from international justice, but he's looked after. He's treated as a coherent member of the international community. And the World Cup is the same thing, because it's part of the moral, cultural, sporting order which gives legitimacy to the West. And look how disgusting it is. Look how immoral it is. I have to admit, I've quite enjoyed a few of the matches, but that is hypocrisy, isn't it? We are living in one of the darkest times in modern history, and it's so lovely to be here and to hear your voices, because too few people show this kind of awareness and care about it. I'm going to talk a little bit. As it happens this weekend, it's not just an international crisis of the moral order, but it's also something very potentially quite important is going on in British politics. I'm going to talk a bit about that towards the end. But first of all, I might respond a bit to Katie with my recent experiences in the West Bank and in occupied East Jerusalem, where something utterly unspeakable, particularly in the West Bank, is going on. The destruction and eradication of ancient communities. I took the bus from Ramallah to Nablus, where I have many friends, and I lived for a while a few years ago. So I have I know the local villages. You get onto these lovely. Some of you may know these buses. The little yellow buses. They fill up. They set off, and you swing left onto Route 60 from Ramallah to Nablus, heading north. It's an ancient road. It dates back to time immemorial, and it's been. And along it are khans, overnight stopping points. But now, if you go along that road, every less than 100 yards, there's another Israeli flag planted there by the settlers as a statement that we own this place. Of course, as everybody in this room knows, that Israel has been ordered by the United Nations out of the West Bank. They don't have any rights there at all. And then we passed the villages, and as in this journey, there was a young mother sitting next to me. She pointed to the right. That's Shiloh, a settlement. That's the head of the snake, because all of the settlers are sending down night after night pogroms into the villages. We passed Tomosaya, which is a Palestinian village, and it's a most unusual Palestinian village because it's lived in by people who, generally speaking, are American Palestinian. They've kept their roots. They've made money in California or wherever, and they've built houses. And now, from Shiloh, the settlers pour down with guns and iron bars, and they attack them with the support of the army. And I discovered in one house, the big villas, they're wealthy people because they lived in the States. And there was a villa, and it had been built by a family from Chicago. I discovered these three girls, the young women, the daughters of the mum, who was a nurse, I think, and the daughters were at university in Chicago, and they'd been cowering in the basement with settlers trying to burn the house down. And I found them, and they've been on the phone to their US senator. And this was the first time they'd been back to Palestine. Mum had taken them back to their ancestral home. And the mum said, do you know, the people up in Sheila, they're Americans too. American Israelis. We are American Palestinians. And in America, we'd be neighbors, we'd be friends maybe, but here they are our deadly enemy. And apart, you go from village to village. I went past Beta, a village I know very well. And again, like so many of these, it's new, the martyrs, they called them the guardians of the hill. The settlement was built a few years ago. And when the settlement appears, they take the land underneath and then they start to attack. And they were protesting. A lot of the bravery of these Palestinian communities is unbelievable. When I first went there, there were 12 martyrs. I went back later, there are 16. I think it must have grown now. They march every Friday just to say, look, this is our land. But they're not armed, they're not a threat to anybody, they can't kill anybody, they've got guns. They do hurl stones, they do settle like to towers just to make a statement, and then they get shot. 16 have been dead, have been killed, including an American citizen. And of course, American citizens only matter to America if they're Israeli as well. So there's been no, I went to the place where this young woman activist had been killed. Shot dead. And I went to where the Israeli soldier had been who'd shot her. And you could see she was behind a tree. He was on a sort of vantage point in a building. It could only have been, the Israelis of course say that there was an exchange of gunfire. It wasn't, it was an assassination straight to the head. This happens all the time, it's happening. It is becoming dangerous now to go. Even as you had some protection as a foreign journalist, but now everything has changed. And that's, again, going back to this journey on the bus, they were saying the rules have changed. The army is no longer in charge. The settlers are in charge. They are and so they can do what they want, and they can call up the army, or they've merged with the army. They think it was so much better when the army was in charge. It wasn't that it was really friendly or anything like that. It's just that they had rules, and these new ones don't. So foreign TV crews are now being attacked. Even kind of Israeli activists are risking their lives. But as for of course, in the Palestinian villages, it's horrible, and every so often you will see these photographs of rabbis. The Rabbi Schneerson is called, messianic figure. They believe the land belongs to them. They're doing God's work by driving the Palestinians off the land. You can leave or die is the message. And this is supported by a messianic head of the police. He provides the guns. He releases guns to the settlers so that they can protect themselves. It doesn't date till October the 7th, by the way. This was the coalition agreement, which Netanyahu needed to reach with the religious Zionist parties in 2022. In order to survive as prime minister, Netanyahu gave control over the West Bank to Bezalel Smotrich, he took it away from the army and gave it to a civilian politician, Smotrich, who is a fanatical settler. He lives in one of the most notorious settlements, and so he has directed an epidemic, an explosion of these settler attacks, which is what Katie was talking about. Six attacks. They come in, they steal your livestock. Again, on the bus, a young woman pointed up to just said, "Look, those weren't there last week. That's two little white, in the near distance, on the top of a hill. The settlements are always on top of the hill. The Palestinian communities are embedded in the land, so they're they're on they're not right down in the valleys. They're just on the bottom brim of the hill. Where they can boat, but they have ready access to the breezes, the agricultural land, the livestock. But the settlements are always on the top of the hill. And the lady pointed out, she said, look, you can see, if you look, and there they are, two caravans, two white caravans. And she said, next week will be more. And this signals the death of a community, because what then happens is there'll be a second caravan, and then you'll go to your land to look after it, and you'll be shot. There'll be a man with a gun, and he will shoot you. He'll take it off the land or shoot. So you can't go on your land. And then they will come down into your village, and they will walk around it with total impunity. If you object, they call in the IDF. And now every village has a gate has been put at the entrance to every village, yellow gates. And so they can lock you in, they can stop you moving. And they come down, they're armed with armed bars and guns. And often at night, they will steal your livestock. They'll go through your house. They just walk into your house as if they own it. I've heard this story many times. They'll slash all because they know that the farmers have working capital, normally a few $1,000s effectively in shekels, and you have to hide them away. They'll be hidden, and they go through your house until they take those dollars. If they don't steal the livestock, the fully grown sheep and cow, they will actually just kill them. They'll kill the lambs, blind them. It's so malicious. Now, I want to come, having set the scene of what is going on, I would now want to come to the Labour leadership election, which is going on. And I haven't dealt with Gaza, I haven't been to Gaza, or I have gone close to Gaza, and I've seen it, and I've reported about it, the genocide is still going on, although it's slower. We reached 1,000 dead since the ceasefire. It's horrific what is happening in Gaza. But we come now to the question of this. First of all, I think we can now give a verdict on Sir Keir Starmer as leader. It was the subject of my book, but it was an ongoing situation. But now I think, in the wake of as Macclesfield, I think we can be certain that Starmer's out, and he's going to be replaced. Do you know that he's never ever said? It's not simply that he's not said that there's a genocide, and I think he's entitled not to. We have to wait in the end of the day till the International Court of Justice makes its verdict, and he's entitled to say, I respect the rule of, the highest court in the world. But what he hasn't said is even that war crimes are being committed. He's found it impossible to do that. Now, war crimes, atrocities have been going on every day, all the time, not just in Gaza, but also in the West Bank, in Lebanon more recently. This inability to confront the Israeli government. Remember, very early on, Starmer gave the go-ahead to collective punishment. He said it's okay. That's a terrible war crime. He said that was all right for Israel to withhold fuel and water. He has continued, apart from with a few exceptions, to supply arms, to have overflights, to give a military cooperation with the Israelis. And as far as the West Bank is concerned, the British government has failed to, has not sanctioned settlement goods. It came out finally with a feeble statement a couple of weeks ago. It urged companies not to trade with the settlements. But there's been no settlement. I mean, Britain is funding, but by trading with the settlements, which are largely agricultural, we are enabling or helping to fund the atrocities which are being committed all the time. And this makes Starmer, to use the phrase, complicit. Many would say that it's too weak a phrase, complicit, which was the title of my book. It's a collaboration. Certainly the United States are collaborators. They've been party to all of this. They've supplied the arms. We've supplied the arms too. I do think it's very important at this juncture, when Starmer is going to be, it's utterly humiliating, less than 2 years after a massive electoral victory in the general election of July 2024, and he's going to be thrown out of office. There must be a debate inside Labour about where the Labour government stands in regard to Gaza, Palestine, Burnham was not, the mass media is part of the problem. It supports Israel. So Burnham didn't get asked questions by the BBC or, the Daily Mail or the Times or whoever were reporting it in Macclesfield. But now we're having a national election. We need to extract statement. It is essential that we extract statements from all the candidates about where they stand on these issues. And what are the issues? The supply of arms. Why are we supplying arms to a country which is, I think, attacking 4 neighbors at the moment? Syria, Iran is now being suspended. Lebanon, they're back in business. And of course, Gaza and the West Bank. Why are we continuing to supply arms? It's unacceptable. All candidates must be asked to justify that. The issue, I think, now of sanctions, there's a very strong case for flat-out sanctions on Israel. Israel is, according to every senior human rights organization, including B'Tselem in Israel itself, which is an Israeli organization, an apartheid state. It's also, according to the United Nations, committing a genocide. And almost every senior, globally respected human rights organization is quite clear about that it is. The case for sanctions on Israel is immensely strong, but certainly it is time the British government imposed sanctions on the settlements, just flat sanctions on the settlements. And it is also the case that we need to impose BDS, boycott, divestment, and sanctions on Israel, as it is not acceptable. I mean, look at some of the statements we've had recently from senior members of the Israeli cabinet. Ben-Gvir, the national security minister, Dan, he said he wanted to kill everybody in Lebanon. He said that. I mean, what? This is a genocidal statement. It's quite unacceptable. Lebanon is a neighboring state. Well, I mean, it's unbelievable that this is allowed. Smotrich is making similar statements about the West Bank. Netanyahu is tolerating all of this, and in any case, made outrageous statements about Gaza, which now means that he is being pursued for alleged war crimes. And if we have a claim which we've inherited from our magnificent past in the World War II, when we saw off Nazism, to be a country which believes in decency and human rights. I know that ministers will be supplied with briefings that we need to stay close to the United States, and they're the closest ally of Israel, and in any case, Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East. I think that there are a series of questions which must be put to all candidates in the forthcoming leadership contest, which will be, where do you stand on BDS? Where do you stand on sanctions? Is Israel an apartheid state, which the British government never says? Is this a genocide? As I say, I can forgive Burnham for not saying it's a genocide. I think it's legitimate to say that we wait for the ICJ. I think you've got to respect the highest court in the world. But these are the questions. Should we be supplying arms to Israel? And they must all be put on the rack on this matter. And because the mass media in this country is systemically pro-Israel and generally says, there's a new phrase going around, if you read the Daily Telegraph or the Spectator, it's a genocide hoax. It's not something which, it's been made up, or apartheid is I think I'm right in saying that the Israeli foreign minister said that to accuse Israel of apartheid is a blood libel. He said this yesterday, I think. You can't allow this kind of, by the British government, to start to internalize this rhetoric coming from Israel. They must be held to account for the carnage they've inflicted on the Palestinian people and now the Lebanese, and also to a great extent it's going on in Syria as well, and the lawless attack, the criminal attack on Iran. So I think this is a great moment. I say a great moment, a terrible moment in history. Britain is no longer an imperial country. But we can be something better than that. We can be a good country. Trump says make America great again. I'd say make Britain good again. And that's a much better thing to be. And that is true to the best of who we are. And everybody in this room, I think, represents that. And that's why you're here tonight. And that's why it's been a wonderful thing to do to come to Halifax. Thank you very much for allowing me to come and speak here.
Prior to Peter Oborne speaking, Katie Clark of Calder Valley Jews, Jenny Lynn of Halifax Friends of Palestine, and Mark Metcalf of Calderdale Trades Union Council spoke. The event was chaired by Daniel Whittle of Calderdale TUC.